Welcome back to another unsolicited and uneducated football analysis by your friend David Valentin. I want to talk about the situation with Mexico. This past week, Mexico lost 2-0 against the United States in Cincinnati, and last night 2-1 in what is dubbed the Azteca in Edmonton. Probably some of the worst football conditions I have seen in a very long time. 17 degrees Fahrenheit, snowing. As a Floridian, I can't think of a worse place to go play football. To see what's happening and think that this is coming out of nowhere and it's a surprise is ludicrous, because this is something that had been predestined to happen for the last 30 years. And I'm going to tell you why. In CONCACAF, Mexico basically sat unchallenged. For many, many years, the United States and Canada show no interest in the game of soccer or football. The Central American nations were embroiled in wars and poverty, and they basically are just not as big as the United States. As big as Mexico, or have a big population like Mexico. Mexico is the largest Spanish-speaking country in the world, surpassing Spain itself. The second largest Spanish-speaking country in the world, guess what, is the United States. But since we don't have an official language, I guess that honor will fall to Argentina. So, the Caribbean islands, for the most part, size-wise, they're microscopic compared to Mexico. And in CONCACAF, especially in the Caribbean, cricket and American baseball have been the preferred sports in Nicaragua and Panama, as well, since they are were highly influenced by military conquest from the United States. Also, northern Mexico is highly influenced by American sports. So that's basically the situation in CONCACAF. Is for when it comes to football, Mexico had it was they were penciled into every World Cup there was and there is. Now that has changed with the advent of MLS in the late 90s and the interest in the sport. The United States and Canada are growing. Not only that, rich nations like this attract immigrants. And with those immigrants, okay, you're going to have the taste for the game of football. And not only that, those players are not good enough to play for the United States and Canada, tend to do so for their countries of their birth or their ancestry. The Caribbean islands right now and Central America are benefiting immensely from Americans and Canadians of their particular ancestry, especially in the female game, or in women's sports, because the United States obviously is so far ahead in women's football that countries like Mexico and Panama, Nicaragua, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, all these places are benefiting immensely from the diaspora that lives in the United States and Canada. Now, also, it's important to say that a lot of the immigrants from French-speaking islands that have moved to France and from English-speaking islands that have moved to the United States, Canada, and England or the UK, they are also stocking their national teams with this type of players. Mexico suffer from arrogance of not seeing that they had to get better because their competition was always breathing down their neck. If I can quote the legendary wrestler Ric Flair, who said, "To be the man, you gotta beat the man," I have to say that Mexico downplayed their competition many, many, many times. Anytime that Mexico defeated the United States, they will say, go back to play baseball. Go back to your football. This is not for you. because, and I kept saying this, the inferiority complex that most Mexican fans had was, well, you can be better in everything, but football, that's our thing. You will never be as good as us. Well, they have proven you wrong. Not only did the United States defeated you, Canada, the hockey crazed nation, smashed you, and you don't even know what happened. You have been dazed and confused for the last 24 hours. I have to say that Mexico is going to continue being a powerhouse, especially in CONCACAF. I am a big proponent that the Americas as a whole should be one confederation, because the way it is right now with CONMEBOL and CONCACAF, you basically have little fiefdoms where in CONMEBOL you are guaranteed that Brazil and Uruguay and Argentina are always going to go to the big show, while the scraps will be thrown to whoever is left on the western part of the continent. And real competition never fosters in the Americas. That's why European countries are so good at going to the big show, going to the World Cup and winning, because they really have to fight to get their spot against some of the best competition there is. Africa, same way. Every African nation that makes it to the World Cup is a competitive team, because they have to really fight against very good teams. But when you have a confederation of 10 teams and you have a confederation of over 30 teams, but let's be honest, it's basically a confederation of 5 very good teams, then you have this balance where you make it to the World Cup, but you get there just to basically go on a sightseeing tour. Mexico has been downplaying MLS, but MLS has been producing top talent that has beefed up the Central American competition and the Caribbean competition. And the United States and Canada have built on the foundation where their squads today are super young, super talented, and most of them owe their careers to coming from a MLS academy, having played college ball in the United States, having played in MLS and then moved on to Europe, or making a career out of MLS. MLS is not perfect. And I don't want to come as an MLS apologist, but I have told people many, many times, you cannot make football culture by waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday to watch a team in a city, in a country that you have never been, in a culture that you're not part of. That's not football. Football is getting up, getting ready, go with your friends to the stadium and support a team that represents your city where you live, and be there with your friends and neighbors and fellow citizens if in that particular city, and just support your team. That's how you create. That's how you create football culture, and that's how you get better. When you are creating talent, when you are creating fans out of people who go play a sport recreationally or competitively, and obviously support their local team. So I am old enough to remember a world without MLS, and I have seen the transition going from playing in empty NFL or college football stadiums to the magnificent stadiums that we have been building for the past 10 years, and seeing the growth of the sport. So where do we go from here? Where do we go from here for Mexico? Well, Mexico has to stop and assess themselves and look at their squad. Players that are only there for name, players that are there because they sell shirts, they need to be told, thank you for your service, but it's time to move on. Moral victories don't get you points. Moral victories do not allow you to lift silverware. And I think the Mexican fan base has to demand reasonable things from their federation. Number one, what's happening with our local league? Are we exporting good players that want to return to play for the national team? Are we fostering good competition, healthy competition in our country? Are we paying good salaries for players to make a nice living in the game of football that will be enticing to people to come and play football? And lastly, are we stamping out corruption in the federation? This is critical, and that's not exclusive to Mexico, because a lot of federations all over the world have that issue where you have the I scratch your back, you scratch my back type of situation. In all fairness, it doesn't matter the size of your country. Representing your nation is a privilege, a prideful privilege, and one that is a dream of pretty much any kid out there, to wear your nation's colors and to compete and to win even better. And that's where Mexico needs to go back to the root of that. Create this as a holy endeavor, not just as an opportunity to make a few bucks, or maybe an opportunity to just get your name out there. If we once again go back to the kernel of it, that's what they need to do. Now, if the United States and Canada continue to be this good, then maybe Mexico's time as a powerhouse is coming to an end, because it's going to continue being challenged. That they're going to lose to Trinidad, that they're going to lose to Dominican Republic, no, I think that's very, very far into the future. But certainly they have two neighbors that have come to play, and that every game is not going to be a guaranteed victory, especially when Mexico's team is aging badly, and the United States and Canada have some young, hungry players that are playing in some of the best leagues in the world. And, Mexico can't really say that. So, with that said, it's an interesting development in CONCACAF. Worth pointing out, is Mexico going to miss the World Cup? There's a good possibility. Anybody can be eliminated at this point. So until all the games are played, qualification is up in the air. So nobody can really sit back, lift their feet up, and start counting the chickens until they are hatched. So thank you for watching. See you guys on next video.